I want to start this episode by following up on two LinkedIn posts that I wrote before the February 28 attack on Iran. I'll link them in the description below. In those posts, I laid out what I believed cyber retaliation could look like if the US struck Iran, not in theory, but based on historical behavior and prior escalation cycles. This episode is a check-in on those forecasts. So not to say I told you so, but to ask a more useful question. How is that forecast playing out so far? And the short answer is very much as expected. One thing I want to be clear about up front, when people hear cyber retaliation, they tend to think of a single dramatic cyber attack, something big, something unmistakable, something that shuts the lights off, right? I mean, that's what we think. But that's almost never how Iran has responded. Iran's cyber strategy has consistently been asymmetrical. The goal is pressure, not spectacle, persistence, not precision, and most importantly, creating disruption that spills over beyond the initial targets. What we're seeing after the February 28th strike fits that pattern. So far, the environment is characterized by elevated activity, a lot of noise, and a mix of real disruption and exaggerated claims. We are already seeing reports of hacktivist operations, denial of service activities, defacements, and influence campaigns. This is all part of the picture. That doesn't mean that nothing serious is happening. It means that this is the early phase. And this is where executives tend to misread the situation because the absence of a catastrophic cyber events gets interpreted as safety. Like they're not going to take it that far, right? Like we're not going to see an impact from that. That's a mistake. That's not the case. So historically, Iran doesn't respond with one clean blow. It responds in waves. It uses proxies. It relies on deniability, and it lets disruption spread through the systems that were never meant to be targets in the first place. And this is where many organizations that think they're not going to need to be concerned about this are missing the point. So this kind of brings me back to that core point that I also made in those original posts. Cyber retaliation doesn't stay contained to critical infrastructure. It starts there. But because of visibility and symbolism, it moves quickly through the dependency chains. So identify your providers, cloud providers, managed service providers, payment systems, logistics networks, SaaS tools that your business depends on every day. Most companies don't feel geopolitical cyber retaliation is going to affect them because they're not the direct target. They feel that because it's something that they rely on goes offline, that somehow that's disconnected or it's out of the range of what I call the blast range. But that's not right. So inside organizations, this phase doesn't show up as we were breached. Instead, it shows up as authentication failures, vendor outages, delayed shipments, customer-facing downtime, executives asking why operations are impacted when security says there's no confirmed intrusion, right? This is also the phase where misinformation becomes a real business risk. So during escalations like this, exaggerated claims and recycled incidents spread fast. You have AI-generated or misleading content circulating on social media. And even when those claims don't hold up, they still shape perception. So boards, executives will see headlines. Executives will see alarming videos, and pressure will build to do something. And rushed decisions made under psychological pressure often create more damage than the original disruption. One of the most important disciplines for leadership right now is to separate claims from confirmed impact. adversaries understand that perception itself is a weapon. Now, I also want to address the broader risk environment because cyber doesn't exist in isolation. We've already seen how kinetic escalation can heighten domestic tension and fear, which in turn accelerates the rumor cycles and internally anxiety. And that atmosphere matters because it changes how organizations interpret technical issues and how quickly they escalate them. So, what should CISOs and executives actually be doing during this phase? First, treat this as a billion business resilience problem, not just a security problem. This is about uptime, continuity, and dependency management. Identity is the fastest way disruption spreads. If identity systems wobble, everything downstream follows. So now's the time to focus on hardening that, monitoring it, assuming that it will be placed under stress. Second, reduce exposure where it's easiest for opportunistic actors to operate. So think internet-facing assets, edge devices, and weakly protected services. These matter more during geopolitical distractions than during calmer periods. Third, assume a vendor impact, not hypothetically, but concretely. Ask which external providers could shut down operations if they were offline or if there was limited access, or whether you have rehearsed those scenarios. Okay. Fourth, prepare for disruption rather than compromise. Tabletop exercises should focus on we are down scenarios, not just data theft, because that's what executives will experience first. And finally, govern your information flow. Decide who is responsible for validating claims, filtering noise, and briefing leadership based on confirmed facts rather than social media velocity. Now, when I wrote those LinkedIn posts before the attack, the point, the point wasn't to predict headline-grabbing cyber events. The point was to forecast sustained disruption. That's what this looks like. The most dangerous mistake right now is assuming that because nothing dramatic is happening yet, the risk is past, or that it's not going to materialize. That's the mistake. The question isn't whether your company is a target. The question is how close you are to someone who is. And that question matters long after the headlines have moved on. If you like this kind of in-depth analysis, be sure to follow me and also on LinkedIn, and I will see you in the next video.